a very brilliant theory, but again, like when you apply it to the data, you are not getting anything that you wanted to get, right? Because when you are applying it, you expect to get some results, but if the results are not supporting the theory, then again, you are dead anyway. Okay. So what I suggest to all my PhD students and also some of my co-authors who are already PhD, they're professors in some other universities, if they want to work, and the first thing I ask them, okay, tell me what type of data you have, what is unique in the data. Okay, if the data is not unique, then theory has to be, like somehow or developed or not exactly the same thing that we're using. But for example, the type of model that I have discussed so far, okay, I mean, this is not the whole list of models because again, like I told you that we started in 1977 and this is 2025 or 24 if you want to stop in December. So there are a lot of developments that were going on. Works, then I may be also able to run some of the codes. Otherwise, I will be showing you the codes which are coming from the book directly. Or the other thing you can do, it depends on what is your interest. I mean, you can just do a Google search. For example, if you want to use SCADA, then you can just type stochastic frontier in SCADA, and then you'll find many different places where SCADA codes are given. So SF cross is one of those things. The code that we use in the book is not SF cross. It is SFA or SF. So again, just like name, you cannot call by a name, and that is designed for SF cross. Okay. So orientation is not part of the course in other packages. There is a default which is production function, and if you are using cost function that is plus sign, then you have to add cost. So again, like that, and then other way of doing is just orientation. Right? So there might be little differences here and there, but these are all kind of part of SCADA. Okay. Now, if you are interested in using R, then again you can just type with those type of things. That means stochastic frontier in R. There are not that many codes, but all the basic codes for estimating standard models are also available in R. Okay. So it depends on what package you are interested in using. But my advice to you is that whatever you do, if you learn R, that is going to be kind of an investment that has a payoff. So whatever work you do, I mean, you don't have to be a professor, but again, if you work for a company and they also value the knowledge of R because most of the companies are nowadays moving in that direction with the software industry. Okay. And again, like the people, the newer generation, they are coming up with the knowledge of using R. So again, this is something that you might consider, investing some time. Okay. The problem of using the standard packages is that somebody has to write it. So you are always handicapped because if somebody is not writing it and you want to do something, this was the problem for me. I wanted to do something and then I didn't know how to program. So then again, whereas if you know how to program it, you get the advantage. You can get the papers published a lot before someone else who is relying on people to write codes. So now when I work, I always look for people who can write codes. And again, because of my experience, I'm not saying age, but age is related to experience. So I know people all over the world, so I know who are good programmers, who are good in theory. So whenever I have those type of ideas that requires more sophisticated coding, I send them so again, this iPad, I just write down my ideas in a couple of pages and then kind of email it to the person. Say, well, this is the model that I want to work on. Do you think that you can write the codes? And then if I say that, well, yes, I mean, I get a feel that, well, this can be done or not done. Okay. But again, I always check with the person, um, and then the next thing is just getting data. Okay. So again, you might get the data first, but again, for me, most of the time I'm looking for development in the um, in the theory. So for that, again, I don't necessarily think enough of data. But for people like you might be thinking in terms of data first, and then think in terms of what model you want to apply. Okay. So it depends on who you are. I mean, for me, I just spend more time in development of things, development of new tools. So again, I don't necessarily spend time in looking at the data. But again, if I have co-authors, and nowadays again most of the people that I work with have co-authors. And again, these co-authors sometimes come with data, sometimes again do the estimation and things like that. So it depends on again at what stage you are. But when you are starting your career, you should be thinking in terms of doing most of the thing by yourself. I mean, you cannot think in terms of the way I'm doing because I just okay, I develop the theory and let someone else do the estimation. I mean, you can find people like that, but I would say that you better invest time in learning how to code, at least some of it. Now, again, in SCADA, you can also do codes yourselves, but then again, you have to know SCADA a little bit more. I mean, it's just not standard packages. There is something behind this thing. So SCADA ADO file, ADO, and that's what this program is done. So anyway, so this is it because it's closer? Okay. Okay, so let me then, instead of talking about those things, but again, those are useful things because somebody has to tell people that, okay, this is what you need to do. And nobody told me that, that's why I'm telling you that you don't want to go through the type of problems that people encounter. Okay. So non-standard application, that means, I'm going to talk about some situations where you may not be interested in estimating a production function, but what I'll be showing you that the tool, the stochastic frontier tool, can be used. So the first thing, let me just take the pencil out. So the first thing is I think in terms of investment function. So again, from your macro class, you learn that investment is a function of some variables. So I was just thinking in terms of investment in here, and it's a function of your government skill, GDP, and then things like that. Okay. Now the question is, before you estimate or think in terms of estimating investment function, you might be thinking in terms of a case like that. Do you think that the companies in your sample face some kind of constraint, what we call borrowing constraint? I was talking about in a constraint again in the last class. So that's similar type of constraint. Okay. So again, the companies want to borrow money, but the bank is not giving them the amount of money that they want. Okay. So then again, their actual investment is going to be, if you think in terms of some optimal. So what would be the relationship between actual investment and optimal investment? Your actual would be less than optimal. So you have this type of thing that means your actual investment, you write it out like this. IA, this is going to be less than I star. What is I star? This is optimal, okay, or desired. So again, this is the whole thing that I was talking about. That means if you have inequality, you can make them equal, right? By adding or subtracting something from there, okay, or multiplying, okay. Multiplying by less than one or bigger than one will make this two sides equal. So let's say, well, in this case, what I'm just saying that since this is less than that, what I can just say that actual investment is optimal minus something. So again, in this case, U is non-negative. Okay. Okay. So what happens is that now if I star is defined in this way, it's f of x, and again, like f of x is generic function, but this is investment function. Okay. So again, you know from a textbook or some other papers what are the variables that are used to determine investment. Okay, so if you have cross-sectional data, then means if you have data on individual companies, again, at a particular point in time, so you just write IAI, the subscript I in here for individual companies, and then again, this is the optimal investment function, and this is the noise curve, and then again, this is one-sided data. So should I call this inefficiency? Yes or no? No, because again, this is not a production function, this is not inefficiency, the way we define input-oriented or output-oriented, right? But it's closely related to that concept, right? So how do we interpret it? You can think of this as a shortfall, investment shortfall. Right? Actual investment is less than optimal, okay, because of the constraint, right? And again, this is in finance literature, this is a big thing, but they don't use the stochastic frontier type tool. They figure out some other ways of determining which companies are constrained. Okay, but again, like you see that well, this has an advantage of not only finding which company or which companies are constrained, but also the degree of constraint, meaning that by how much investment is less than optimal because of the fact that the companies are facing constraint. Whereas the traditional approaches that are used in the finance literature, they simply identify okay, uh, firms or companies that are facing constraint or not. They are not able to figure out by or what is the impact of this constraint by how much their investment is less. Okay, so stochastic quantity is not only telling you whether the firms are constrained or not, but also it will be able to figure out by how much investment is lower than the optimal because of the constraint. So this is not an inefficiency, but investment shortfall. Okay. But again, like the tool that we'll be using is exactly stochastic frontier. So if you look at this equation, okay, that you have in here, this is nothing but a stochastic frontier. The only thing that well, we have different variables, right? But that should not bother you. You got your dependent variable is investment instead of output, and then the independent variables are not inputs but some other things. Right? But those are mathematically in different names, right? Even we talk about y and x in lecture, but when you get to the data, these are not y and x. Y is again some output variable, and x are some input variables. Right? So you don't need to do much other than saying that well, what are the variables that determine investment, right? So now if you get a panel, then again let me just write down the model. So again you have I, A, and then put I and T, and then again I'm just simply writing F, X, I, T, and these are again determinants of investments, right? Tolerance Q and many other variables. And then again like we just write VIT minus UIT. Okay. So again, UIT is going to be the start point. Now again, we can specify it in a more flexible way. First thing is that we can add a company specific effects in here, say alpha I. Okay. So if I write this is a linear function, let's say well, this is f is xit, let me put transpose beta to indicate that there are more than one x variable. I guess you are familiar with matrix and vector. And then again, like you have VIT minus UIT. So what you are doing is, like in the last session, Dr. Joginder was showing you how to include fixed effects, right? But you are showing the model that is kind of redundant nowadays. Nobody uses that. The model has inefficiency is time invariant. So this time invariant part that I wrote in here, this is not inefficiency. This is what I would call firm or company effects. So remember I was talking about individual heterogeneity or individual idiosyncrasy or whatever term you want to use. So again, if you want to work for particular companies, you know that these companies are different, not that they are paying you different salaries, But even though again the salaries are the same, you know that working for IBM or working for some other companies, again some people have a feeling that well I would like to work for this company because of something, right? So this is captured by this alpha, right? Okay, so this is one dimension that you can add to it. Another dimension is that UIT. So again, like instead of saying that well, this is you can just say well that depends on ZIT, for example. So again, like you can talk about mean, okay, candidate normal, or even half normal. Okay, but again, there would be again in the half normal part, you can add also determinants, okay, through the variance of you. Okay, so this is one thing, and then again you can also think in terms of remember the four component model that I was talking about. So you can have three components if not four components. So UIT you partition into two parts. One is time invariant inefficiency, ARI, and then the other one is let's put a star and you have to separate it from UIT. So this is first part is time invariant, and then the second part is time varying. And again, what you can do is that you can make this also dependent on some variables. I guess let me just see. Can you all see the last line? And this can also depend on some other variable ZIT. Okay. Now to do so, of course, we are talking about a model that requires a lot of information. Right? So you need information on investment, you need information on the X variables, you need information on the variables on which inefficiency will depend. Right? If you said, well, this is too much, I don't have those type of information, then again you can just say that well, theta R is IID with zero mean and constant variance, there's no determinants, and UIT is also there's no determinants. But of course, again, this is research. We always say that well, to make it better or to make it richer, you have to put more in there, right? Otherwise, it will be a simple stuff. Okay. I mean, that might be also useful, it depends. Right? Otherwise, again, I was about to give the example of food. So, like today, they had for breakfast chapati, and I said, what is subject? He said, no subject today. So, so what happens is that you can enrich it by adding a lot more vegetable, the type of thing that I was expecting. But again, like you can have only one or none in this case, only in that case, dahi. Um, so again, like if you put more, then again the meal is going to be at least from my point of view. You guys are used to eating only one subject, but I am used to eating many different types. So to me, that is going to be a richer dish because it has like many things in there. So again, like coming back to the main thing is that it depends. You should be looking for more variables. Okay. So then again, I keep on giving you examples like think in terms of reform. The government, again, you can think in terms of state government if you are looking at either from Haryana or Punjab or some other states. Um, then again, like you think in terms of some kind of reform that the government is introducing, either state government or central government, and then you want to find out the impact of those things on investment. Right? Uh, so again, you need to find out something that is interesting, something that people want to know. I mean, if you do something, very few people will be interested in knowing. Then again, that's not going to be a hot item, right? To make it hot, remember, think of the newspaper. They put up the stories that people want to hear, right? Like to listen to. So you have to be thinking in terms of that. That means, let's say, well, there are 10 different reforms. You pick up the one that people are more interested in knowing. Okay. Or you think the government should know, okay, even though sometimes people are not interested. Okay. So again, you can add things in terms of a panel. Nowadays, pretty much every data is panel. Okay. So if you go back 30 years or 40 years, there would be very few panel data. When I was doing my dissertation, there was only 2 or 3 data sets that were panel. But now again, like if you do any cross-sectional model, almost everybody will be saying that well, why have you been cross-section? You can get a panel. So things have changed. Okay, so because now it's easy to get panel data. Okay? No matter whether you are looking at manufacturing or agriculture or like a health or again name it. I mean, pretty much every place. So the only thing where you can you will have difficulty in getting a panel is when you do the survey yourself. Okay. So just like we Banerjee who got Nobel Prize a couple of years ago, so he would be coming to India with graduate students he has from India. He doesn't bring them from US. He brings money to pay for the people who are doing the survey. So those are basically cross section because I don't think that he goes to the same village every year and interview the same individual every year. So he might have, but most of the time he wants to spread the net in going from one part of India to another part. Okay. Okay. So that's basically again like under investment. Okay. So the other important thing that I found recently is working on COVID-19. So again, like this was a big thing. Every country was saying that okay, in terms of reporting, because they have to report it to WHO or again like. So what do you think that the country would be doing? Reporting less than the actual number or more? Less, right? So and pretty much everybody. You don't have to be people like us meaning people like India, from India or Bangladesh or Pakistan or this part of the region. We have a tendency not to trust, right? Thing. So whenever this type of information is given, we immediately say that well, there might be something going on. There is some fishy thing going on. Okay. Or what do you say? Dharmic kuch, what is the term? Yeah. Meaning that well, you become you suspect the deal. So in this case, the suspicion is one direction. It's not a noise. Noise meaning that it can go either direction. Okay. So here we know that this is going to be less than that. Okay. So this is one thing, and because of that, data was available. There are many different sources. Some were collecting the data at every point, meaning for every country, for every month, or even in like every week. Okay, so there was no shortage of data, and there are many COVID papers. So recently, I worked on this type of thing. So the new innovation was just to that interpretation that what is the underreporting, magnitude of underreporting. And we had data from different countries. So then again, we were interested in knowing which country is bad in terms of in terms of a particular type of crime, let's say rape. Okay, what do you think will happen in the reporting of rape? Will be underreported or overreported? Underreported. Again, because of the fact that especially for like underdeveloped countries or developing countries, because of the stigma associated with that, right? This happens also in developing countries, but it's a lot less. Okay. There again, some people might be saying that okay, you might be faking it and reporting it in the police, but that does not happen that often, right? So again, like for cases like this, I mean, if you have a murder, then chances of underreporting is very low because murder case has to be reported, right? Okay. But again, like if you're thinking in terms of rape, then again chances of underreporting is a lot more. So again, you can have a model like what I was talking about, the state investment. So rape on the left hand side, the number of cases, okay, and on the right hand side you have determinants. So what do you think? What sort of variables could determinant or be used to explain the number of rapes? Any variable that you think would be explaining?
Number of police complaints.
Okay, or number of police complaints or number of let's say what police forces, right? Okay. Complaint is what is happening after. But again, like if there are a lot of police, like in the evening, I just saw that there are police everywhere inside the campus. I don't know what they do, but they must be doing something, even though they have a bamboo stick, right? Not a gun or anything like that. So the presence of those type of people will, be a deterrent, right, for crime. I mean, every type of crime. So again, you can think of number of police forces, police officers, or simply number of police. And then again, you can think in terms of unemployment. Okay, if people are unemployed, they have to do something, and they get involved with lots of this illicit activities. And again, crime is one of those. And again, it doesn't matter whether you are looking at rape or burglary or some other types of crime. Okay, so unemployment might be again a factor. So you can think in terms of again some such variables that can be used to explain. Now, if you do econometrics, another good thing is if you throw some variable and you are not so sure about it, whether that explained. I mean, if you look at the coefficient and remember what Dr. Javinder was saying, or I pointed it out that again you have variable insignificance. What is the meaning of a particular variable or parameter statistically insignificant? Because it's just telling you that well that does not have any explanatory power, right? So if it is very small or again in a standard error is very high and in a p value is high, then you know that well, that variable is not explaining and you can get rid of that variable. Right? But there are some standard things that everybody will agree. Okay. So you just look at those variables and then again go back to this when if you are dealing with cross section. So again, you write down the model like this. Okay. So now instead of investment, you are just saying that your number of reps, and then again the rest variables are number of police, and then again like unemployment and things like that. Okay. And then you have V and U as usual. If you think that well in this again like I'm just saying that well that's not inefficiency, so that's kind of underreporting. So underreporting, if you think that it depends on some other variables which are not in here, okay, then you can also add those things. Now if you have a panel, then again you can add, let's say well you have a state and it's a panel. So you want to include state effects, right? Remember, I was talking about in especially Bihar, but again, like you can say that well, every state has a different effect. It's not necessarily Bihar, but again, like you just look at Haryana, Punjab, West Bengal, or whatever state you have data on. So again, like you can control for the state effects because things are going to be different for different states for lots of reasons. Okay? You cannot explain why Bengalis behave differently from Punjabis or again people from Haryana. Okay, but sometimes we just say that yes, I see that they are behaving differently. I don't know why. I cannot explain it, but I know that they're different. So this is basically is controlled by alpha I. Okay? Because again, the good thing about it is that you don't need to know what are the variables in there. Okay, you can just with the panel, you can estimate them as fixed parameters or in a random variable. Okay, and then again, if you think in terms of this underreporting has again there are two parts. One is time invariant and the other one is time varying. Then you can just split it into these two parts and again go ahead and do this thing. So from modeling point of view, see that well, there is nothing new. But again, this paper that I am talking about, this investment under reporting, this paper got very, well cited because of the fact that, well, Hung Jin Wang is one of my co-authors for the book. He was the first to talk about this. So the stochastic frontier model that he used was not new. Everybody knew about it. But because of the fact that I used the tool in a particular situation, and everybody was kind of interested in knowing that, then that's why people were reading the paper and they were citing the paper. So the point is again, it's not that you have to always think in terms of developing the model or again like coming up with a new model. I mean, if you can do it, that's fine. But sometimes interesting application can take you quite far. Okay. So that's kind of the reason why I'm just saying that this is important. So again, coming back to crime, I think that has also a potential. I had a PhD student from Chile, so he did get some data from Colombia. Okay, and again, you know that well, Colombia is famous for crime and that type of thing. I asked him to get some data, but and he got some data and he wrote a paper, but the data was not that good because it was only a particular district. Okay, we were unable to get the data from different districts. And when you look at a particular district, the socioeconomic variables or X variable that can explain your crime, those variables do not change. Right? Because if you look at unemployment, unemployment is what? You can get unemployment in Haryana. Right? But if you say that, well, I want to look at unemployment rate in different, say, in a different district in Haryana, it's very difficult to get it, or even if you get it, there will be almost no variation, right? So the way data is collected is not specific to each district or again like a particular town in a district, but it's a number for the whole district. Right? So if you have many different districts, not just Haryana, but look at Punjab or again, uh, I mean all the states of India, then again you'll be getting a lot more variation. Okay. So if you can do those type of things, I think that has also a potential of a good publication. And people will be interested in knowing because this is an area which is under research. People don't do a whole lot of research on crime. There may be some theoretical papers, but empirical papers that are not that many. Okay. So this is crime. Let me just move on to on something in here. So let's wage. Okay. So again, like when you apply for job, you always say that okay, you have some idea about what type of salary you'll be getting, right? So which is what we call reservation wage. Okay. That means in your mind is that okay, how much are you worth? What meaning that in terms of your job? Right? But your actual wage or salary that you get is not necessarily the same as your reservation wage. If somebody wants to pay you less than your reservation wage, then you are not going to accept the offer, right? So you will be accepting the offer only when the salary is at least equal to the reservation wage. Now, many cases, if the job market is not competitive, then you might accept an offer where your wage is less than what your expectation is. Given your education and experience, you might be expecting something more, but you are unable to get job offers, so you are accepting a job that pays you less than what you expect to get. So then again, you can make them equal by just adding this U-turn. Again, that's not going to be an efficiency, but again, you can say that again, if you have to use a particular term that is not too strong. If you use discrimination, that term might be too strong. Okay, you might be saying that well, I'm discriminated against because they are paying me less, right? Less than what I deserve, right? And what you deserve is the frontier, right? So unless you do a very thorough study, then again just look at people, whether a particular race is being discriminated. Sometimes you use male female, but again like in India it's not only male female. You can talk about different people from different castes. We have what scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and then underprivileged. What are the other classes? Yeah, so OBC, right? So those type of things. So you can bring those variables into the analysis. I have never seen any study like that. Okay. All I just see that well from the US or the way we do our teaching is basically male and female. I mean, people are interested in knowing whether females are discriminated against. We all know female wages are less than male wage, even if you control for everything. Okay. And then again, another interesting thing is now last year's Nobel Prize, it was given the Nobel Prize for analyzing these things. I mean, what is happening to wage gap between male and female? Is it declining over time? Okay. So if you look at Europe, it's declining at a very steady rate. But if you look at US, it's declining, but at a very, very slow rate. Okay. So still, the gap between male and female wages is quite high. Now, whenever we talk about male and female wage, we don't simply compare the wages. We just run a regression controlling for your education, experience, and everything, right? Because females on average will have less experience because of the fact that, well, especially when they have kids, so they drop out of the job market or take a leave and that type of thing. So again, your length of service is going to be less. But education, you have to have the same education, otherwise the comparison is not meaningful. Okay. So that might be also something interesting. Okay, and again, this is not production as such. And again, you may not say that, may not use the word discrimination if you think that that's too strong. But again, if you think that while your study includes almost everything that people can think in terms of that will influence your salary, then you might use the word discrimination. Right? So again, in India, when people think in terms of job production, okay, I don't know what is the reasoning, what sort of reasoning they provide to have quota or reservation for different groups of people, because they think that well they are not they cannot compete with other people, right? So again, what do you mean by they cannot compete with other people? Any idea when if you want to use the word they cannot compete with the people of other caste, or people in the rural area cannot compete with the people from the cities. So what is the reason why they cannot compete?
Sources of education, quality education.
Quality of education, okay, or it's not resources directly, quality of education. You can relate it to the resources and the work. If you're from a village, you may not have money to send your kids, or for you cannot come to Delhi or some other places to study because again it's going to be costly. Right? So the quality of education might be affected by the resources, but in the end, it's basically the quality of education. So the whole idea, at least from a policy point of view, again, is just to give these people in the villages some opportunity to have a better education. But again, I'm not getting into those type of things. All I'm just saying is about whether there is any difference between this, and then again you can dig into those. What is causing this difference? Okay, because that is going to be more interesting. Right? I mean, sometimes people will say that, well, we all know that again, this class has a lower wage, controlling for everything else than the other class. But the question is that, well, what is causing that? Okay. So again, if you have some interesting variable, you can think in terms of resources, or somebody can say, well, quality of education. But quality of education is easy to talk about. But again, coming up with a variable that will say the quality of education, can I compare quality of education in here and the EU with again like a university, or like a Southeast University in Delhi? I mean, can you do that?
Qualitative.
Yes, qualitative. Sometimes you can say that, well, let's just look at some objective measures. Okay. You might be able to get by just saying that, well, what percentage of the students get a job? That might be an indicator of quality. If you have a good quality of education, your students, I mean, if you look at the university's point of view, they will be getting job, okay, or their job placement is going to be higher than some other universities. So you might be able to get some variable. I'm not saying that well that's definite, but again, like whenever we use those type of variables, some of those are quantitative, but we have to use quantitative because in econometrics, again, qualitative things don't come into the picture. I mean, you can just say that well, your ability or how smart you are, that would be affecting your salary. We all know that, right? But the question is, from an econometric point of view, is that how do you measure your ability or quality and things like that? Okay. So again, you can think in terms of consumption that I mentioned uh, in the last session. Okay, let me just go over for a few more minutes. Now again, these are directly not related to production, but maybe also related to something that you might be interested. So one thing that we all talk about is merger and acquisition, right? And that is happening all over. So recently, look at Japan. So the two of the car companies, they I think that's officially merged, right? Okay. So the question is that, well, why do they merge? Okay. Uh, Again, there may be many reasons, but you can simply focus on efficiency. So do you think that, well, their efficiency will be improved after merger? Okay. Or what I was talking about Indian banking, that they denationalize. Okay. So the question is what happens to efficiency after denationalization? Okay. So you have data after denationalization, you have data before denationalization. So those type of things can be easy to evaluate instead of the merger in Japan because they just merge, so there is no data after the merger, right? But if you're looking at the Indian banks for like a denationalization, then you will be able to get data on those variables. Okay. So then again, what you can do is you can run either two regressions, one before, one after, or you can just pull all the data together, and then again in your EU term, that means like you are talking about the effect of merger on, let's say, profitability. You are looking at ROE or ROA, you know those terms, right? Because again you are in management. So let's say well, you're running a regression with your ROA or ROE on the left hand side, and then you are explaining it in terms of some other variables. And then again, those variables are not necessarily explaining everything, so there would be something unexplained, and that's going to be captured by the income. So again, you want to see what is happening to that after banks were denationalized or those banks who were merged with others. Right? Because that was the focus. I told you that a finance minister made a statement that again and we were kind of judging that whether there is any truth to her statement in terms of quantification using efficiency. Okay. So and I told you that we didn't find any support for her statement, meaning that those were done in a very ad hoc basis. That means, it's just like the way politicians do things, again, they just do it in a way that may not have anything to do with economics. Okay. So again, like this is margin and acquisition. The other thing is that again the time duration. Okay. So this happens in the US, or at least the way I interpret. So there are a lot of companies that are merged again, and then again like a new CEO comes in and that type of thing. So they want to see what is the improvement. That means what is the efficiency improvement. Now what happens is that when two companies merge, a lot of people lose their jobs, right? Because of the fact that this is what you have two like a research division. But after merger, you say that this is redundant. We don't want to have two. We need only one. So you just keep some people from the first company and some from the second company, and other people are let to go. So the question is, what will happen to the people who are staying in there? They will be under pressure, right? They might be thinking that this might be my turn. So what is the impact of that on your work effort or efficiency? Do you think that you will be working harder? Yes, because you'll be working harder because you just said that in the meantime you might be looking for alternative jobs, right? But so long as you are in that company, you will be working a lot harder. So that will show improvement in efficiency. And again, if you follow the statistics, you will see that efficiency improvement is taking place right after merger, right? But then again, if you follow this over time, then again, this efficiency improvement is going down. Why is that? Because that is not sustainable, right? If you put pressure on me, under pressure I can work harder, right? But the question is about that I cannot do for many years, right? So this is the reason why efficiency improvement is going down. Now, what happens to the CEO? By then, the CEO also moves to a different place, right? So the CEO in CEO CV will say, well, look, this is my record, right? And the improvement was remarkable, and everybody will say that yeah, that's true. But then when it was falling, he said it is time for me to move, right? So he just goes to another place and does a similar thing. Right? So this is also something that you want to examine. What is happening to efficiency gain over time? Okay. Sometimes I give some different type of example, which is not economics, but everything in the beginning, right? Even in romance, right? In the beginning, when you get married, again, everything looks rosy and everything is very nice. But then again, over time, again, things don't look that rosy. But again, like you have to include some other things to make things going. So sometimes you have kids, sometimes you have many other things to maintain that relationship. But again, whatever you are looking at, this is the point that I am just making. That over time things tend to go down. Okay. This is just nature. I'm not saying that. Okay. I mean, this is for individuals. Right? It's not that everybody gets divorced after a certain point in time. Okay. But that is also something that is happening all over, and even in India, the divorce rate is increasing. If you look at I'm again not getting into that. What is the cause of it? But I'm just making a statement about time. That means over time, things do change, and you have to include time as one of the variables in your model. Okay, so let me just see how many things I have. Okay, I'll just cover some one. Okay, so subsidy. This is something that government of India is doing a lot, right? So whenever something comes, a minister comes in, goes to a village, or they say, well, okay, you guys are not doing well. Okay, I'll make sure that your fertilizer will be less for the fertilizer. Meaning that they just subsidize the price, right? So again, you will be thinking that, well, what is the impact of subsidy? Because remember, when you put a subsidy on something, the effective price of that item is low, right? So let's say the price is W, and then you get a subsidy for per kilo by 5 rupees, then the price is going down. So in a sense, you are artificially changing the price. So when you think in terms of profit maximization, remember the point of tangency that I was showing you, that will change. So because of that, allocation is going to be changing. So if you get a subsidy on fertilizer, you tend to use more fertilizer. So again, like if you are talking about some other consequences of fertilizer, remember I was talking about bad output, then you might be saying that, well, that's not a kind of a good decision. Right? But again, if you don't want to go in that direction, you want to simply say that I want to find out the efficiency improvement because of giving subsidy. Right? Is there any gain in there? Right? So there might be some gain, there may not be some gain. So I told you that I use data from Norway often. So in Norway, when I was talking to them, that well, in Norway they also give subsidy to farmers, especially the small farmers. And then we were talking about efficiency. And then my father said, no, in Norway, the subsidy is given not to increase efficiency, but to maintain lifestyle and diversity. Okay, so the government said that well, we want to have some small farmers, even though they are less efficient than the big farmers. They don't want commercial farmers all over. Right? So then again, they don't expect giving subsidy, meaning that well, keeping these small guys alive. Okay? Otherwise, they won't be. So if you bring Walmart, so then a lot of the small stores will be out of business. Right? So they deliberately want to keep that, and that is kind of the reason for subsidy. So if you look at efficiency improvement, you won't find any because that was not the objective. The objective is just to maintain a lifestyle. I jokingly just talked to them and said, well, okay, so you are getting money for the government to drink beer or wine and then watch sunset. But again, that's what it is. Okay, so yeah, I mean this R&D and that type of thing. R&D is the same thing. Because again, research and development, the idea is that well, whether the research and development is improving performance. And again, performance, you can just look at not output but ROA or ROE, and then again run a regression on some other variable. And again, your U term in here is again indicating whether I'm sorry, R&D is improving your performance, whether in terms of ROA or ROE. Now, that is also something debatable. Sometimes you can find positive effects, sometimes you find negative effects, right? But the good thing about stochastic frontier is that you don't have to say that well everybody is getting the same benefit, right? Because again, we have observation specific estimates. Okay. So what happens with R&D nowadays? Many companies don't have in-house R&D, so they are doing outsourcing. So this is also then you have to look at it whether the outsourcing R&D is better than in-house R&D. So there are again just interesting issues that one can always address. Sometimes I start talking and then things pop up in my head and I stop. Nothing is written in here. But again, those are kind of interesting things that one can look at. Okay, so again, I have some other things, but these are more kind of related to econometrics, which I'm not talking about. Okay, so I am stopping in here, but again, before I stop, I would ask you to think about it because the next hour, what I'll be asking you is that, well, based on what I have talked about, whatever you have understood, I know that a lot of it might have done above you, but whether there is anything that you, any question that you would like to ask, okay? And again, feel free to do that. I mean, I always say that, okay, I mean, no question is a dumb question. You can ask anything that you would like to do. So think about it for the next 10 minutes while taking the coffee there. Okay, so while taking coffee, just think about those things. That would be also helpful to me. That was, okay, I did it for 4 or 5 days and then again, I didn't adjust those type of things. So next time, again, I'll be careful about those things. So this is kind of educational on my side also. Okay? Okay, then, so let's just go for coffee.